time, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Well, welcome folks to this month's webinar with TVC. So I'm happy to be joined by Derek Almond. So Derek is with SambaSafety, which is one of our partners here at TVC Pro-Driver. Derek's the enterprise account executive, and we work really closely with Derek and team on our partnership. So today we're really going to focus on some of the different things that SambaSafety has, but really focusing in on CSA monitoring and MVR reporting and how that can be applicable to your business and some of the things that come with that. So with that, I thought we would just do some brief introductions. So again, my name is Nick Hillesheim. I'm the Chief Sales Officer at TVC Pro-Driver, and Derek Almond, as I mentioned, is the enterprise account executive with partnerships at SambaSafety. So Derek, I don't know if you just want to give a quick background about yourself and what you do at the organization, and then we can go ahead and get into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very thankful to be here. So I've been in the MVR and MVR monitoring, CSA monitoring world for over 7 years now. And at SambaSafety here, I work with our partnerships, such as the one with TVC and others that we have. But really, it's to spread, our awareness so that we can also then present more and help our partners out with their clients' needs. That's our niche, and your niche is, of course, taking care of your own clients as you do. And so we just want to be able to help out as we can.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Derek. So, I think to get things started, it would be helpful just to, talk a little bit about, what that means, right? What is CSA monitoring? What is MVR monitoring? And I know, like, we were recently at the SSHR conference, the Safety, Security, and Human Resources conference here about 2 weeks ago in Minneapolis. And, this was definitely an area of interest, and one of the topics that kept coming up as far as, folks that are looking into this type of service and how this can be applicable to their business. So I think just a high level overview, Derek, on, what that means, right? And how folks can leverage, this type of service within their business to ultimately drive, safety across their organization.
Of course, yeah, we all know that annual MVR reviews is mandated for regulated fleets, regulated drivers. And we also know that, roadside inspections, everyone's favorite thing, is also a requirement that's imposed on everyone. However, it's not always the easiest to get a breakdown of changes throughout the year. A lot of people are checking maybe their CSA scores maybe once a month when it updates, and then looking at reports when they come in. And similar with MVRs, they're really only looking at them maybe once, possibly twice a year. That's very rare, though, because of the cost. But really, there's just so much of a gap between when something happens and when you're actually able to look at it. And so what we're able to do is give daily updates on the CSA side of inspections, crashes, violations. An officer, does that roadside inspection, or a driver gets stopped at a weigh station. The inspection's done. The officer puts it in today. We'll tell our clients about it tomorrow morning when we pick it up, like at 4 a.m. And with our MVR monitoring, we no longer need to wait a year to find out if somebody's been suspended or has a violation, especially when it comes to the driver in their personal vehicle. A lot of times they don't think that affects their actual job. In reality, it does 100%. So we're able to then update our clients in near real time for any kind of changes on a motor vehicle record, negative impacts, I would say, such as suspensions and violations.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I know you probably have tons of stories, but one of the stories that really stuck out to me, Derek, at the SSHR conference was, somebody hired a driver, that driver, they ran the report and, they had an active CDL. And then literally a day later, that driver happened to be involved in an accident where there was a fatality. And come back that he actually had his CDL suspended that day. And so it was just like a weird overlap, and the fleet owner and that fleet had no idea that driver had a CDL that was suspended. And so and I'm guessing this happens more frequently than not, and that's one of the critical components of having an actual service like this to report on that, so that way you're notified immediately of any of those changes to that motor vehicle record. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So the states update us, depending on the state, could be monthly, weekly, or daily. But we're able to alert our clients as soon as the state gives us that data. tons of stories happen, but also with drivers or fleets that are gray fleets, where the regulated drivers are getting checked periodically, but those non-regulated as well, those are just as risky. But yeah, countless stories of drivers getting suspended in the afternoon. MVR was pulled in the morning. In the afternoon, they're toast. So we're able to help our clients get all that notifications and just make sure they can protect their drivers and themselves and their fleet and everyone else around them.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great service. So when it comes to the CSA stuff, Derek, I mean, so you guys are picking up, like, so if I'm a driver and I get pulled over for a roadside inspection and there's some things flagged on that roadside inspection, is that what you're saying? Like that is immediately picked up like the next day? If I'm a fleet owner or, I'm in charge of safety at an organization, I can be notified of those changes taking place like literally the next day, correct?
Yeah, officer. It all depends on the officer, but the day after they submit that report, we are emailing our clients, letting them know that a new report has been, identified and submitted. Not only that, but we break down what is new on that report, so the client doesn't have to go through. They of course can, because we have a copy of the report. They can go through and look at that, but we'll have a breakdown and bullet points of, hey, here's what's changed. Whether it's maintenance, hours of service or accidents or whatever it might be, but we're able to tell our clients every single day about changes with the CSA.
Nice. Yeah. And so, I mean, that's helpful. Like if you're a safety manager to get that information. So now, because I'm guessing it happens, right? Where, hey, I'm a driver, I got pulled over for an inspection, and I'm just going to try to sweep this under the rug and not say anything.
Or take your time on getting that report back to the safety manager. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, it's allowing that safety manager to really be proactive in their approach versus waiting for a driver to report that and then reacting to the situation. Ultimately, which probably leads to corrective action, right? So like, hey, this is now an opportunity for me as a safety manager to be able to go out and coach that driver on how they could handle the situation differently. Or, hey, you probably didn't do a good enough pre-trip inspection, and that's why this was flagged. And so, and I know you guys at SambaSafety, because we've partnered with you guys for, a little over a year now, but you guys also offer safety training videos and operational training videos. So I think a lot of this stuff really goes hand in hand. So like if you're starting to see certain trends as it relates to MVR CSA reporting, now this represents an opportunity for an organization to really become more proactive in their approach. And, one, they can react to the situations as they occur and assign specific trainings, but really it's all about being proactive.
Yeah, absolutely. The driver training is, we want to help you or the clients identify, manage, and then modify the driver's behavior, because it doesn't do us any good to see that poor behavior and then let it just go on. So, we definitely are focused on the training piece, because then that's going to ultimately reduce overall risk for everybody. Correct any, driving behavior that needs to be corrected. After the fact, after we find out about something like an alert, which I'll show here in a little bit, or you could do it, you could assign training monthly, quarterly, whenever you want, as often as you want.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Talk to me a little bit about, I know you mentioned like states report on, and I think that's specific to MVR reporting. Like each state is different on the frequency of that report. Do you guys work with every single state across the US or the lower 48? Or, I mean, is it just like, hey, like some states, don't report on this, just talk to me a little bit about how that works, Derek.
Yeah, in a general sense, we work with every state, including, DC, because it's on its own little, entity, I guess. But the way that monitoring works is we get license status, which is going to be valid license, yes or no, and violation updates in the majority of the states. We're talking 40 plus. There are some states that are a little behind, where they're only reporting on violations, but through the CSA monitoring and that as well, we're able to catch all those changes that happen with it. In terms of frequency, a little less than half the states will operate or send updates monthly. a little less than half are going to be weekly, and then there's 6 states that operate or send us updates every single day. Now, when I say update, it's not that you have to wait a month from that occurrence to find out. It's that the state reports on a certain day in the month. And so if something happens a day or two before that notification date, we're going to cache that data. But at the longest, at most, a client can wait 28 days for an update because of the states. Now, we do get daily updates in 6 states. We would take updates every single day, every single minute if the states would allow us. So we're always just waiting and pushing and pressuring the states, trying to get them to do better. And some states do improve. So it's great.
Yeah. So, I mean, my brain always goes to return on investment, Derek.
Right.
And, so if I'm a fleet owner that's, looking at adding, something like this, like what we're talking about, I mean, talk to me about like, where's my payback? And I mean, does it, I'm guessing it has an impact on insurance rates. I mean, there's all sorts of areas that we could probably look at when you start incorporating some of these things and how you can drive some of those costs down. But just talk to me a little bit about where the return on investment is if I'm, willing to make the monthly investment on a service like MVR reporting and CSA reporting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the number one investment in return is that you're going to know what's going on with your drivers all the time, rather than one day a year. But what that allows, what we've seen based on, SambaSafety, we monitor over 3.5 million drivers throughout the United States, large and small carriers. So we see it all. But what we've seen is an accident and incident reduction by 15%. We see an improvement through intervention, meaning that we've identified and we've alerted you of something that's happened, and you've had a conversation with the driver. We've seen a 75% success on that. So what that means is we've alerted you, and then within that 12 months, only 25% of drivers have had something else happen, whether that's a violation or something else in that matter. So drivers will just continue to improve with monitoring. They have to know you're monitoring, so you have to sign a release form. But what happens is that overall drivers will be better. Now, does that directly impact, or can I say that we directly impact your insurance premiums? I can't, because insurance goes up every year no matter what.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. But what I can tell you is that with a safer fleet, you will have better premiums. And you get a safer fleet through monitoring, managing, and modifying driver behavior with our services.
So now I know you've been doing this for a really long time, Derek, and I mentioned a story that I heard at the SSHR. Any stories that specifically jump out to you, like, hey, I had this fleet that I worked with, and they were faced with these types of challenges. I came in, we positioned this, they implemented these services that we're talking about, and what was the overall impact of implementing those types of services?
Yeah, gosh, so many. One of my favorite ones is probably from about 5 years ago, where a company in Colorado had about 300 drivers. For some reason, they never ran a motor vehicle record on their drivers beyond pre-employment. And so when we're talking about this, you could almost see the sweat dripping down the safety manager's face as we're talking about this. So we're discussing what the ROI is and what their overall potential liability is, because about 15% of drivers have a change throughout the year. And so if you think about a 300 driver fleet, that's quite a bit of drivers who have had changes, potentially suspended, tickets, whatever have you. And so they were really worried. Needless to say, we got the service up and running really quick. He called me the day we got him up and running, and he sounded really, really mad. But in actuality, he was just terrified by all of the data that we have found on his drivers. He's like, are you telling me that 67 out of my 300 drivers are suspended today?
Wow.
And yes, yeah, that's exactly what the data says. We kept in touch, right? And over the years, we saw his 50% is the average at which a driver has a change, or the fleet will have a change throughout the year. We've seen his average go from about 30 to 40% down to about 8% through monitoring, through how he manages it, and then how he was modifying with driver training and everything else like that. So needless to say, he came out of there a hero, but you know, there's stories like that all the time that happen.
I mean, that's a large fleet, right? And
Yeah.
so, but still, if you look at percentage wise, that was a very big percentage of their entire fleet that was driving with a suspended license.
Yes.
And had they just done the annual reporting, which is the requirement, I mean, they wouldn't have picked up on this, right? So this allowed them to really come in and say, okay, we've got a problem here and we know we need to fix it. Because I mean, just think of the risk. I mean, that's where my brain goes, is like the amount of risk involved if you have that, one of those 67 drivers that's driving with a suspended license, and they go out there and they get in a serious accident where there's a fatality involved. That could be detrimental to that entire organization just from having, not having that visibility. So, I mean, I think the payback with, with something like that, Derek, is, I mean, because the cost for this is it's relatively minimal, right? When you look at the per driver cost, and the amount of payback that you get just from having that peace of mind is pretty significant.
It is. And I read, or it was a conference a little while ago, can't remember which one it was, but they said average cost for a commercial accident is about $18,000, and that's like on the good side, right? And so, and I'll go over this in a little bit, but actually came out with a great study last year that said, accidents or crashes are predictable based on violations. And so we've known that for a while here at Samba because of the data we have. But if we can help, or if we can tell you about one violation or suspension that you didn't know as a client, and you work with that driver, and in the next 12 months, nothing else happens, we potentially have saved you $18,000 at minimum, potentially more. You know what I mean? So the really ROI is getting in front of your drivers and everything like that, along with administrative costs. Not everybody, large and small, have the time to pull MVRs, review every single one, and then pull the drivers aside as to where, we will continually monitor and give you little bite-size bits as in terms of alerts and everything like that, that you as the safety manager can handle and work with your drivers as you see fit.
Yep. No, it's fantastic. I mean, I love the alerting component of it.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's just like, hey, now I know as a safety manager, I know what I need to manage because I'm being alerted of any of those changes that's coming right through your portal, right? I mean, that's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. Well, I know so you mentioned that ATRI study, and I think it's pretty interesting to see some of those statistics. I don't know if you can share that slide, Derek, that really shows that correlation between violations and accidents.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be helpful in this discussion.
Yeah, I'd love to. As we're going through the site, I'd love to show that as well. We'll definitely cover that, and I could send that over to you as well. And it's also on their website.
Perfect.
Awesome. Are we ready to do a demo? What do you think?
Yeah, let's just do, we've got about 10 minutes left here. So I know
Awesome.
it's a pretty quick demo. This is a really straightforward product. So it's easy to use, but I think just giving some visibility and insight as to how it works would be helpful. While Derek is pulling that up, if anybody has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. We'll save some time at the end here to go through a little Q&A section.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll my goal is to pique your interest, and then my goal is to help TVC. So any questions, they can always send it my way, and I'm happy to help on a call or anything like that. So we should be looking at a graph, and what this graph tells us is a breakdown of the drivers based on motor vehicle record data. So what we see is the drivers in the green who have a clean driver's license. There's no violations, no suspensions. We're looking good. That's where majority of drivers are. Now the orange is where things start to change. So once a driver gets a violation, we of course are notifying our clients, but we're then collecting that data and scoring them. Our scoring system is standard. So same point in California system. We don't use the state system, excuse me, but our point values are the same in every state. So California, Minnesota, doesn't matter. It's all the same. But what the orange piece is telling us that these drivers have had at least one violation, 1 to 3 violations, basically how it's broken down to. We're seeing some risk. That's what it's telling you. Now, drivers who are in the red, those are going to be suspensions, DUIs, multiple violations, major violations, stuff like that. this is the high risk drivers. And this is where, these are the drivers that are costing you most downtime, worry, anything else like that. Now you can identify these drivers easy just by clicking on this, and you can go into the whole list. Now we can go through it all, but you can manage any list by looking at the MVR score. So if we scored it by high to low, those are your riskiest drivers at the top. We also see some other data there too. Okay. So we want to make sure not only can we alert you, but then show you where your drivers stand in terms of all of that. Now, as we talked about this, when violations happen, this is what we're seeing. So actually came out with that study, and the FMCSA said this for quite some time as well, but there is a direct correlation between violations and accidents. So if a driver is getting a failure to yield violation, 141%, that's almost, well, I would say it's a guarantee pretty much, right? That they're going to be involved, in an accident in the next 12 months. And so that's what, similar to where this is showing that, we also want to prepare our clients through that report, but also on our alerts page. So our alerts page, what's here is our MVR monitoring and our CSA monitoring. So as we look at this and as we monitor, once we get an update from the state and we identify any changes, we are emailing our clients. Once they get that email, that is the indication they need to come and take a look at what's happening. So this is pretty simple, and it's a demo site, so please forgive, any kind of, strange data, but this is a great example of it. But this new alert's coming for Stephen Edwards. We can see that the new violation is just following too close. If there were any others on there, such as speeding or distracted driving or anything else, it would show it there. Now you can take a look at that MVR, the new one that's come because of this alert. And as it's pulling up, our MVRs are standard. Like no matter what state, they're all going to be in the same format. They're going to show the same data, but we can see underneath the violations who's following too closely in this. So even when you have to look at MVRs, it's still easier. Now, what can we do with this driver? Well, we want to do a little bit of workflow. We want to change the status as we're going to work with them. We want to change the priority, as you see, and this is all up to you because this is your driver, you know best. And then we also want to assign it. Now, if you have other users or other people that are helping you, you can assign it to them, they can work it. Additionally, what we have is training. So we can click here and do a search for some training courses, or we have recommended training for you. Now, we do the recommended training because, again, you are the professional. You know your drivers. You know what you want them to do. So we want to give you that right to choose what your driver does. So based on this, we could see that with some defensive driving and some speed management courses would be great for them. To assign, click here. All we need is an email address and a due date, and then they'll receive that in an email format. They can complete that training on their phone, tablet, or computer. If they have an ELD that allows web access, and email access, they can do it on right there in the truck. Yeah.
I was going to say this is great, Derek. So so as I'm looking at this, this really could help limit the liability that I have, because now I have like, hey, look, I was made aware of the issue, and then I assigned the training to help resolve that issue, or take that approach to resolve that issue. And now I have a paper trail of exactly the steps that I took to ensure that this driver was doing the best possible thing that they could be doing. And I was trying to help them get there. So that way, in the event of an accident, right? So, if they do happen to get in an accident, now I can revert back and I can say, look, here are all the steps that I took to ensure that this driver was a safe driver. And so, I would happen to think that, that helps reduce that liability to some extent.
Yeah, definitely. Because, if heaven forbid you have to be in court at any point, you want to show that you've done the most you can do. And through the monitoring, getting updates as fast and as soon as you can, and then also trying to modify and improve that driver's behavior are going to bode well for you. And hopefully by doing all of this beforehand, you won't even have to go that way.
That's right.
You won't ever find yourself there. What's also great is if we click, I'll come back to this in a minute, but what's great is if we click on the driver's profile, if you scroll down at the bottom, we'll have underneath here, activity history, we'll have all inspections, all MVR alerts, and all training that's been assigned. So that if somebody wanted to know exactly what's going on with this specific driver, it's all right here. It's really easy to find. Back to the alerts. To save ourselves some time, I'm going to go ahead and just filter, and then I'm going to find ourselves a CSA violation or alert that's also come through. So based on this, we can see that there's been a new DOT crash. Again, it's a demo site, so we can't put all the correct data in here, but it gives you a good effect for it. So we know that it's a new crash. We could look at the report. It'll have all the information in there, time, officer, everything like that. You can also then similar workflow, change status, priority, or assign. You can then also through this do your recommended trainings. And of course, we also do clean inspections. Those also come through so that you can, pat them on the back or
Nice.
however you award your drivers that way, it'll be there. But both of these will come in. We have to filter here because it's a demo site, but if this is your site with your drivers, your DOT number, this will all come in right, rapid fire, if you will. It'll be there for you to view. We can work with multiple DOT numbers. We have clients. I have brought on a client last year, had 86 DOT numbers. That's a lot. So no matter that, we can break them all in and get the same data everywhere. In addition to the alerts where you're going to spend most of your time, we also have a bunch of reports that will break down MVR data for you. So license expiration, medical certificate data. If you have drivers in California, we monitor over 1 million drivers in California. So we work really well with the state. Any kind of MVR activities such as violations and accidents that are reported on the MVR, we'll also get that. And then we've got a dozen or more CSA reporting, breaking down your fleet, your basics, where you're at, where your thresholds, and then we even have reports this driver essentials will even go, you can dive down into each specific driver and see their violations, their points, what's going on, and all that. One thing I just want to talk about is our training is all stored here. So our training data, so it's not going anywhere. It's stored. We keep track of it. You can see the breakdowns here as you are assigning those out to your drivers.
That's excellent.
Quick rundown, but if anyone has any questions, we'd love to talk.
Yeah, I mean, so we can open up for questions. We've got a few minutes left. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to type it in the chat and we'll go ahead and get those answered for you. But just to, kind of summarize what I saw here, Derek, I mean, really, this is just, we're just improving visibility at the end of the day. And, by improving visibility, it allows us to take the necessary steps to drive towards a safer organization. Because if you don't have that visibility, you're not going to know, the appropriate actions that take to really drive that safety. But here, we're getting a really good picture as to what needs to take place, and then can tack on things like the safety training videos to really promote, that overall, safety across the organization. So, I think it's, really fantastic. And, and like you said, this applies to a small fleet all the way up to the largest fleets across the country. And I know, there's a lot of folks that are actually starting to leverage this type of service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I can't remember the law firm that was with us at ATA at the SSHR show a couple of weeks ago, but they said the number one thing you can do to protect your fleet is continuous driver's license monitoring.
Yep.
And we believe so as well.
Yeah. No, that's great. Well, it doesn't look like there's any questions coming in, Derek. We're right at 1:30. Any closing words here? 1 second. I'm going to pull up. If you just want to stop share, I'm going to share real quick. If you guys do have additional questions or you want to learn more, we would love to have you reach out directly to the folks here at TVC that can, definitely answer your questions. And if we need to get Derek involved to, dive deeper into some of this stuff, we can absolutely do so. But the number's listed right there, as well as the email, but the number is 855-246-1703. And just reference that you'd like to learn a little bit more about CSA monitoring or MVR reporting. And we can get you in touch with the right folks and get you the information that you need. But with that, Derek, is there any closing words for the folks on the line?
You know, I think the closing remarks is just we've seen MVR monitoring save lives, and that's just through improving the road and the drivers and their behavior overall. And that's what we're most interested in, being in this market and having these services. So I'm just thankful for everyone who's signed up for the services and have their drivers and who are monitoring, because they are doing their most, they're doing their best, making sure that we have the safest roads possible. I appreciate working with you, Nick and Kara, and everyone at TVC. Everything you do, and for your clients is incredible, and this is a great partnership.
Yeah, likewise, Derek. I mean, we really enjoyed the partnership, and we know there's great things to come. And I mean, this is such a valuable tool for our fleets to and our customers and future customers to leverage. And so it's all about increasing that awareness as to what's out there. And like I said, if you do have questions, feel free to reach out to that number, that email listed, and happy to engage with you in those questions and get to what you guys need. So with that, thanks everybody for joining. Everybody have a great rest of your week. Thanks again, Derek.
Of course, my pleasure. Thanks.
See ya.